We are live for our fourth episode of the SCOI Vlog series on distance learning. My name is Abby.
And Jenna.
And we are academic technology specialists from Santa Clara County Office of Ed, and we are putting out a series on distance learning to help all of you. And today, we are doing some pros and cons lists to help you choose a learning management system.
Yes. So if your school district already has a learning management system, I would definitely say go with that learning management system. But we are going to do a review of 3 tools, and maybe you have a choice of some tools that you can use with your students. So hopefully our discussions around the 3 tools will help you make a choice of what you would like to use with your students.
Oh, look at those cats. So each of these series will have about 3 tips. And after each tip, we will open it up to the audience members who are there for a reflection question.
Yes, so let's jump right into our choice number 1. We're going to talk about Google Classroom. So Google Classroom is, well, for each of these, we're going to talk about pros and cons. So Google Classroom is a learning platform where if you're already using a lot of Google Docs in your classroom, this is a really nice one for you because you can take anything that actually lives in your Google Drive and you can use those assignments and give them out to students really easily. So, so one nice thing about Google Classroom is that integration, and it also has a lot of, you can do all your grading within Google Classroom as well.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest benefits of Google Classroom is that it integrates with all of the Google tools. And so it gives you so much flexibility in terms of creating assignments. You can create a template with any of the Google tools and then pop it right into Google Classroom, and it creates copies for all of your students. Actually, I should have put organization as a pro and a con. So it is a pro because the system creates copies for your students. It also links all of those copies to you in your own Google Drive. So you can find all of your students' submissions for an assignment in one folder. So that, I think, is a step up from what we're seeing in previous learning management systems. I'm thinking about Canvas specifically, where it's not always easy to navigate from assignment to assignment if I want to grade one assignment. Hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, I definitely like that. Well, I like the organization feature in Google Classroom. Another pro for Google Classroom is that there are lots of apps that integrate really well with Google Classroom. And if you wanted to just take a look at just a brief list, because you might actually be using a lot of these tools. Casey Bell on her learning website, she did 10th Google Classroom. So this is definitely a podcast worth checking out. She doesn't go over all 70 in her podcast. She just reviews some really popular ones. But if you did want to look at the list of 70, you can scroll through this page, and maybe you're going to find that some of these apps your students are using, and you might find some ways to integrate those apps with Google Classroom.
That's so true. I feel like most EdTech vendors are now looking to see how they can integrate with Google Classroom, since they know there are a lot of teachers who are on Google Classroom with their students, and they want it to be as user-friendly as possible.
And I mean, the last reason to use Google Classroom is that it's free. So you don't have to worry about having to have a subscription, or running out of the number of assignments that you can post to Google Classroom. It's all free for you. If you're using the G Suite for Education.
So to sum up, the pros for Google Classroom is that can keep students super engaged. Google Classroom has an internal grading system, which you can incorporate rubrics. It integrates with so many things, and the price is right, free. The cons, though. Here's our number one con.
Yeah, so we think of Google Classroom like a walled garden. It's a great place for your students to be in, and you can practice digital citizenship. They can communicate and interact with one another inside their classroom. There is a way to connect families to kind of give them an overview maybe of assignments that might be posted to the classroom, but the parent access is limited. You can't have direct conversations with families through Google Classroom. For me, I think the better way for parents to be able to see what's going on into Google Classroom is to actually have their child log into Google Classroom and then have the students explain or show the feed to the parents. That's where they're going to be able to really take a peek at what's kind of inside that classroom.
Yeah, that's true. So it is not a one-stop shop, especially when you're thinking around distance learning, because you want to be able to have a direct line to your parents and your families, and for them to have a direct line to you. And so you're going to have to go through another platform or through email or text to make that happen, because it is not that easy in Google Classroom. So the second con is that really it is, although I've heard of teachers who are using it in the primary grades, the most teachers that I hear using Google Classroom are third grade and above. And so that leaves your school, if you're looking for a school solution, in a little bit of a bind. We're working with Luther Burbank, that school wants one platform for the whole school, and rightfully so, because they don't want parents to have to navigate many systems for their students. So if I have a kid in kindergarten, a kid in third grade, and a kid in fifth grade, and they're all on different systems, then that will be crazy making for the parents. Go ahead.
Yeah, so for the cons, we put that ideally grades 3 through 12, if your students can log in through their Google account, then that's really the biggest barrier for getting the younger students in, is having them log in through their Google accounts.
Oh, so I put this con as, so it is super easy to just substitute. I know we are a little bit in crisis mode and we want a fast solution. And so Google Classroom in some ways creates that fast solution for some teachers. They can easily upload some of their documents into Google Classroom and make sure that all students get it, especially if they're using a lot of Google Docs. However, and I've been seeing this before the school closures, there's a lot of teachers who simply put their worksheets onto Google Classroom, and then it's just a way for them to do worksheets online, which I hope everyone agrees is not typically the most engaging and is not necessarily the best and effective way to get students to do the best learning that they can. So that for me is a huge con, especially if we're kind of collaborating remotely. There might be this inclination to say, well, here's my worksheet, putting it online and, wipe my hands and be done with it.
Yes, that is definitely a great point. So if you are using Google Classroom, try and think of those creative ways that you can get your students learning.
And in our resources, we'll link you to our webpage that has one devoted just for Google Classroom with tons and tons of resources on not only how to use the app or the tool, but also different ways teachers are using it in their classroom to spark engagement. I also put this organization piece. So it's a con because maybe organization is the wrong term, but maybe I mean more that it's hard to get started in a really concerted effort. Because there's so many ways to manipulate Google Classroom now, you can add different sections, you can add different groups. I find that teachers feel like that's a big blocker because there's just so many things to think about rather than, in some other platforms, it's just plug and play and then you go and it's easy to get started. So I would say Google Classroom, one of its cons is that for some, it could be hard to get started on. Do you agree? I see you nodding, Jenna.
Yes, I agree. All right, should we,
So all of our food for thoughts today are, what are we missing from these lists, these pro-con lists? And do not currently have any participants, so I cannot engage them in this question.
yeah, well, I mean, we are putting a lot of resources on our episode notes. So if you are watching this later, go ahead and check out our notes because I did put some links to a really good YouTube channel that has some great videos, and we'll keep adding to this list as well. So shall we move on to Seesaw?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Seesaw is another learning system. It is both an app for a tablet and you can access it through the web version online. And do you want to get started on the pros?
Sure. Our number one reason really to use Seesaw is the fact that they have this K through 12 activity library. And I'm going to pull that up just so that you can see it. So if you are currently not using a learning management system, this is a good go-to one because you can take a look at their activity library and choose a grade level. So let's just choose 6th grade. And you're going to find all of the activities that other teachers have put in for you to draw inspiration from. Or if if you want to, you can just take those ideas and then you can assign it just directly to your class if you don't want to make any changes to it. So that's really nice for somebody who is new to it and is not really sure what kinds of activities to post. Like in Google Classroom, you don't have that bank of activities that you can choose from. You're going to put in the directions for your students and upload the necessary files yourself. And in Seesaw, all of these teachers have put in these activities for you to pull from.
Yeah, I think that's a huge benefit, especially if you just think about the amount of effort it takes to create something and to want to share it. That almost guarantees that the activities that you see are pretty high quality. Because I don't feel like I would want to share anything as a teacher unless I knew that it was going to be useful out in the world. So there's a lot of great innovation happening in Seesaw activities creation, and there's just a ton of activities that have been created that in our next episode, we'll talk about not reinventing the wheel. This is a perfect example where you don't have to do that. You can take from the really good work of others and then spread it to your classroom as well.
Yes. And so our second tip for Seesaw is that it has a lot of really user-friendly creation tools. So I'm actually going to pull you into a sample class that I have right here. And I'm going to go to post student work. So students, when they post to Seesaw, they're going to have access to these tools. And if you're not used to assigning a lot of digital assignments for your students, you can actually have them do a lot of something on paper pencil and take a picture of it. So this photo is a good option for them doing that kind of work. They can take a picture of maybe a book that they're reading, and they can annotate over the pages with their drawing tools. There's drawing tools, there's video. So if you want students to kind of capture a video of something that they've learned, that's a great tool right there. A link, if you're having them work in a Google Doc or something where they're creating a link, they can submit through a link, a written note, or they can upload different files. And if you see in this feed right here, this was these students who were in this class, they just put in a link to their Chatterpix, they uploaded that file and then sent it in the class, and now it is in the classroom feed. So lots of opportunities for creation.
Yeah, if we were thinking for Google Classroom that we're maybe prone to just uploading worksheets, and that could happen here for sure. A teacher could just say, here's the worksheet, take a picture, and then do it. But because there are so many different tools that students could use and teachers can incorporate, I think that for sure encourages more opportunities for creation, for creativity, for voice and choice. I think those are the words that I'm thinking of, voice and choice. So how can we easily provide students the opportunity to show what they know through the method that they want to? They can write, they can video, they can draw, and that can all happen within the Seesaw app.
Yeah, so and as teachers, you can there are different options too. So those same creation tools for the students are the same creation tools for the teachers. And when you put directions in for your students, you can also add your voice. So for those students who might have a hard time reading the instructions, you can also record your voice telling your students the directions. So there's lots of great opportunities for creation. Another example that I was actually just now specifically thinking of, if you wanted to create a video for your students and put it in the class feed, you would just add it as a video, record yourself maybe giving your students a message through video and posting it in your Seesaw feed. That would be a great way for you to connect with students.
I'm seeing posts left and right on social media of parents reporting that their students are missing their friends and their teachers, and they want as much normalcy as possible. And so I think there's opportunity for that in Seesaw as well. Which Lita, oh, you're going to.
I know, I accidentally, my mouse is super sensitive right now.
To our third pro, which is family connection tools. So Google Classroom does not have easy connection tools to stay connected with families, but Seesaw does.
Yeah, so if you want to connect families, you would just go click on families, and then you can connect their email address, or if you have their mobile phone number, then you stick them in here, and then as soon as you click invite families, it sends them a message and it will connect them with just their child's account. So that means that anything that is posted by their child and is approved by you, it will automatically get sent to the teacher. So you could do that to connect with families, and then also you can also send messages to them. So if there's an inbox on the teacher's end, you can have family announcement. And actually I should probably select a class where I open that up. So I opened up families. You have announcements, so you can post an announcement to students. Well, you can actually post announcements to students. You can post announcements to families, and you can post announcements to both. And you can have that conversation back and forth with the family. So the families actually have access to the same creation tools. If they want to share with you about what their child is doing, they can actually take a video of the child and stick it in a message back to the teacher if they wanted to. So there's nice family connection tools in Seesaw.
The last bullet point I added really quickly, it's super easy to set up. Seesaw has, well, in addition to being easy to set up, Seesaw has a huge set of resources, webinars, videos to help you along the way. But it is pretty, I don't want to say it's so easy, but you log in, they take you through the steps of choosing and naming your classroom, and then you're almost ready to go as soon as you get it in the hands of students. So to that end, compared to Google Classroom, Seesaw definitely is much easier for someone who does not have a system already in place.
Yes, I agree.
What about the cons?
So one of the cons is that there's limited free access. So if you don't have a paid account, then you will reach some limits at some point. And with the distance learning, you might actually hit some of those limits pretty easily. So whereas originally I thought that with the free access you get 100 activities that you can post, and I thought, oh, no way is there a teacher who is going to really reach that 100 limit. But now that I'm thinking about it, if you're posting activities all the time, you might actually hit that limit quicker, than if you were just doing this in the classroom, in a real classroom.
Yeah, one of the other pieces of a paid account, and we're not trying to advertise getting the paid account, but so one thing that is missing is some of the analytics that you may get from getting the paid version. I know that for a school account, the work acts more like a portfolio, and it will travel with the student from grade to grade. So that's a definite benefit. You for sure get some more usage analytics and data and a few more features, but other than that, I can't think of any of the other limiting features that you may want to consider before logging into and signing up for Seesaw. The second con on our list is that we get some feedback that the interface may feel too primary for our older kids. We'll preface that by saying that there are classrooms TK-12 using Seesaw, and there are an abundance of activities from all the grades. It's just that when you log in, there's more of a primary feel, and so that may be a conversation that you have with your students, or just something that you have to grapple with.
And according to what grade level you choose when you sign in, it might actually look a little bit different because this class was set up as adult learner, so it kind of looks a little bit different. Now I'm gonna go to the journal. So when I sign students up there, it's just gonna look like this, as opposed to when you might choose a younger grade and you might get some of these kinds of icons as images for your students. So the look does change according to what you choose, what grade level you choose. But yes, some might think that does look a little bit primary for, if you're used to something like Google Classroom.
Yeah, and if you're using a lot of Google Apps, it does get a little bit clunky trying to maneuver between both. So there's that piece too.
Yeah, and then if we go into the last one, I know we talked about this a little bit in Google Classroom. What you don't really have is you don't have the grading options. So you can't like set a point value to your activities and have it keep a grade book for you like you can in Google Classroom.
So that is a definite negative for grades that are trying to keep track of numbers for actual letter grades.
Yeah. I mean, you can give feedback in comments in response, but there's no grade book.
So in summary, the pros for Seesaw are super easy to use, lots of already pre-created materials to rely on, and great connection to family opportunities. The cons, the premium version offers a few more access points. The interface is a little primary, and then in terms of grading, that is definitely lacking. But Jenna has another resource she wants to share on Seesaw on the next page.
Oh, yes. So if you do go to their page, they do have remote learning resources for admins, teachers, and families. So that's a good resource to go to help get you started. And then one of the things on the teacher page that I found especially helpful is this link to learning activities by subject and grade. And I've also linked this one in the show notes because I've actually added to it. Their learning and activities by subject and grade went from PK to 5th grade. And I linked it on the slides too. I updated this page so that it also has some great activities for 6th through 8th grade as well. So you can click on those links to take a look at some of the activities. And if you teach high school, I would take a look at some of these 8th grade ones because a lot of these resources right here can easily be used in high school as well. So those are the resources that I've shared with you about Seesaw. Oh, and then there's one infographic that I have about, a teacher who uses Seesaw with Google Classroom. I think for the creativity features and creativity tools, it's sometimes nice to get students creating in Seesaw, and then you can always have them share those links in Google Classroom too. So there are ways that you can use both of them together. So should I just move on to the next one?
Let's just go to Class Dojo.
All right. So we decided to put Class Dojo on here because we know that a lot of teachers were already using Class Dojo. Maybe not as a learning management system. You might have been using Class Dojo for behavior. You might have been using it as communication tool with families. And so we just wanted to show you an example of something that you might have already been using and that they actually have some other features that might also help with some distance learning. So one of the pros for Class Dojo is that on their site, they say that they're 100% free always. So it's nice that they say that, and I hope that's always true. So if you want to check out Class Dojo, you can sign up, you can create a class and start taking a look at the tool. Or if you go to their site, it takes you to a lot of resources specifically that they've had in response to this home learning.
So
So
our second pro is that there is a direct link to families. So like Seesaw, but unlike Google Classroom, Class Dojo is one of its major benefits is that you can connect with families pretty easily once they're on.
yeah, so with Class Dojo, you can easily communicate with families just like in Seesaw. And they also do have an option for you posting activities. So they do have a digital portfolio option for students. And so that is our third tip for Class Dojo. And for those of you who used Class Dojo for management and communication, you might not have tried exploring this tool, but in these situations, it might be nice to create some activities for your students and have them respond to you that way.
Probably go to cons.
Yeah, so one of the cons related to what we just talked about is that they don't have they don't have an activity library like they do in Seesaw. And the other one is, I think Class Dojo is definitely more primary and geared towards grades K through 6.
Yeah, I would also say that unlike Seesaw and Classroom, I haven't really seen that Class Dojo has a large community out there posting about it or showing how there are not a lot of teachers out there who are showing how they're being innovative or sharing their best practices out there. And so I think that the activities posts are a feature that teachers haven't really utilized to its extent. Could be a very powerful tool, but right now there's not a ton of other teachers that you can collaborate with on. So I think that's another con to mention.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say with Class Dojo, it might be worth looking into if you're already using it. Because if you already have families connected with you there and they're used to communicating that way, it might be worth taking a look at those activities and maybe starting to post some activities in Class Dojo. And some of the resources that I added were the resources that you can find on their remote learning page. And they give you some tips of different things that you can do within Class Dojo. So one of the things that I learned just by looking over their resources is that you can have a class story. So you can post videos, photos and videos into a class story to share with your families. And it says here that posts can instantly be translated into 35 plus languages. Oops. So, you know, I thought that was a benefit in communicating with families.
That's awesome. So to sum up, Class Dojo is great if you're already using it, but otherwise, take a look at Seesaw or Classroom instead if you're looking for a learning management tool.
Yes. So let's see. If you would like to get to our notes page, it is at bit.ly/SCOE vlog for notes. So go ahead and check that out and get links to all of the resources that we've talked about today.
Our next webinar will be tomorrow. We are giving out some tips to transitioning to distance learning. We've got me and Jenna again tomorrow at 1 p.m. We hope to see you there.
Yes. Thanks for watching.
See you next time.
Bye.